My name is Cecilia, and at 54 years old, I thought I understood my family completely. I had spent decades building a life with my husband and raising our son believing we were solid, unshakable. But sitting in that hospital room holding my unconscious son's hand, while machines beeped around us, a small key tumbled from his pocket and changed everything. That key unlocked more than just a box. It unlocked secrets I never imagined existed in my own home. Before I take you through what happened next, I want to know where you're watching from. If you've ever had to choose between protecting someone you love and doing what's right, please hit that like button and subscribe because this story about a mother's choice will stay with you long after it ends. Now, let me take you back to the day everything fell apart. It was a Thursday evening in March, and I was in our kitchen in Boston, Massachusetts, chopping vegetables for dinner. The smell of garlic filled the air, and I had the radio playing softly in the background. Everything felt normal, peaceful even. My husband Gregory was supposed to be home by 7:30, and our son Lucas usually called around this time to check in. At 54, I had settled into the comfortable rhythms of life. Our routines felt safe. The phone rang at exactly 7:15. I wiped my hands on my apron and picked it up, expecting Lucas's voice. Instead, a calm professional voice introduced himself as Dr. Patterson from Massachusetts General Hospital. My heart stopped before he even finished his first sentence. Lucas had been in a serious car accident. His vehicle had struck a light pole on Interstate 93 near Storrow Drive. He had sustained severe head trauma and was currently in a coma. They needed me to come immediately. I dropped the knife I was holding. It clattered against the cutting board, but I barely heard it. My hands shook as I grabbed my purse and keys. I tried calling Gregory at his office. He was the chief financial officer at Harrington Investment Group, often working late. He answered on the third ring. I could barely get the words out. Our son. Accident. Coma. Massachusetts General. Gregory's voice went tight. He said he would meet me there. I heard papers rustling in the background, the sound of him gathering his things. But there was something odd in his tone. Not just shock or fear, something else I couldn't quite identify. The drive to the hospital took 30 minutes, but it felt like hours. My mind raced through memories of Lucas, my only child, the baby I had rocked to sleep, the toddler who had held my hand on his first day of school, the young man who had just graduated from MIT with a degree in economics. He was 24 years old, brilliant, kind, and full of promise. He worked as a financial analyst at a small firm downtown, building his career. I remembered how proud Gregory and I had been at his graduation. Lucas in his cap and gown grinning as he held his diploma. That was just 2 years ago. Everything had seemed so bright then. At the hospital, I ran through the automatic doors and found the emergency department. A nurse directed me to the intensive care unit on the 4th floor. My legs felt weak as I rode the elevator up. When the doors opened, I saw Dr. Patterson waiting. He was a man in his 50s, with grey hair and tired eyes that had seen too much suffering. He explained everything in careful detail. Lucas had suffered a traumatic brain injury. They had performed emergency surgery to relieve pressure on his brain. The next 48 hours would be critical. He was stable but unconscious. Dr. Patterson looked at me with sympathy and said something that made my blood run cold. There's little chance he'll wake up in the next few days. We need to monitor closely. I felt my knees buckle. A nurse caught my arm and guided me to a chair. I couldn't breathe. My son, my beautiful boy, was lying somewhere in this building, fighting for his life. And the doctor was telling me he might not wake up. Gregory arrived 20 minutes later. He looked disheveled, his tie loosened, his face pale. He put his arm around me, but his embrace felt stiff, distant. We were allowed into the ICU to see Lucas. Nothing could have prepared me for that sight. My son lay in a hospital bed, surrounded by machines. Tubes ran from his arms. A ventilator helped him breathe. Bandages wrapped around his head. His face was swollen, bruised. He looked nothing like the vibrant young man who had called me just 2 days ago to tell me about a project he was excited about at work. I walked to his bedside and took his hand. It was warm but limp. I stroked his fingers and whispered his name. "Please come back to me, baby. Please." Tears ran down my face. I didn't bother wiping them away. Gregory stood near the doorway. He didn't come closer. I glanced back at him and saw something strange in his expression. He wasn't looking at Lucas with the devastation a father should feel. He looked worried, yes, but underneath that worry was something else. Fear. Not fear for Lucas, but fear of something else entirely. After about 30 minutes, Gregory cleared his throat. "I need to make some calls. Work emergency." I turned to stare at him. "Our son is in a coma, and you're thinking about work." Gregory wouldn't meet my eyes. "I'll be back. I just need to take care of something." His voice was tight, strained. Then he walked out without another word, without touching Lucas, without even looking at him one more time. I stood there stunned. In 30 years of marriage, I had never seen Gregory act this way. Even during family crises, he had always been present, supportive. But now when our son needed us most, he was running away to deal with work. A nurse named Helen came in to check Lucas's vital signs. She was a woman in her 40s, with kind eyes and gentle hands. She saw my tears and touched my shoulder. "Stay strong. He needs to feel your presence. Some patients can hear us even when they're unconscious. Talk to him. Let him know you're here." I nodded and pulled a chair close to the bed. I held Lucas's hand between both of mine and began talking. I told him about the dinner I had been making, about how the tulips in our garden were starting to bloom, about how much I loved him, about how he needed to fight and come back to us. But the whole time, part of my mind was on Gregory. Why had he left? What work emergency could possibly matter right now? And why had he looked so frightened? I sat there alone, holding my son's hand, wondering why my husband couldn't do the same. An hour passed, then another. Nurses came and went, checking monitors, adjusting medications. Dr. Patterson stopped by to tell me Lucas's condition was stable for now. I should go home and rest. But I couldn't leave. Not yet. I shifted in my chair, trying to get comfortable for what I knew would be a long night. As I adjusted Lucas's hand in mine, lifting it slightly to tuck his arm closer to his body, something small and metallic fell from the pocket of his hospital gown. The staff had transferred his personal belongings from his clothes before surgery. The object hit the floor with a soft clink. I bent down and picked it up. It was a small key, brass-colored, the kind that might open a safety deposit box or a locked drawer. Attached to it with a thin piece of string was a folded slip of paper. My hands trembled as I unfolded the note. The handwriting was Lucas's, but messier than usual, as if he had written it in a hurry. The words made my heart stop. "Mom used this to unlock the box under my bed. You need to see what's inside. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you sooner. Trust no one, not even Dad. Love, L." I read the note 3 times, 4 times. The words didn't change. Trust no one, not even Dad. What did that mean? What had Lucas discovered? And why had he been carrying this note and key with him? I looked at my son's unconscious face. He had known something. He had prepared this note, kept it in his pocket, as if he expected something might happen, as if he had been in danger. The thought hit me like ice water. Had the accident really been an accident? I pressed the note against my chest, my mind racing. Lucas had wanted me to find something so important that he warned me not to trust his own father. I tried calling Gregory again. No answer. I left a voicemail. "I'm going home for a bit. Call me." My voice came out steadier than I felt. I found Helen and told her I needed to go home briefly to get some things. I would be back in a few hours. She understood. These first nights are always the hardest. Take care of yourself too. You won't be any good to him if you collapse. The drive home felt surreal. I gripped the steering wheel tightly, the key and note in my jacket pocket. Our house in Brookline was only about 30 minutes from the hospital. It was after 10 at night when I pulled into the driveway. Every light was off. Gregory hadn't come home. I unlocked the front door and stepped into the quiet house. Everything looked exactly as I had left it. The vegetables still sat on the cutting board. The pot of water I had been heating had boiled dry. I turned off the stove and stood in the kitchen trying to calm my racing thoughts. What was I about to find? Part of me wanted to wait to call someone to have a witness. But Lucas's note had been clear. Trust no one. He had trusted me. I had to do this alone. I climbed the stairs to the second floor. Lucas's room was at the end of the hall. I pushed open the door and turned on the light. His room was exactly as he had left it that morning. His bed was neatly made. Books lined the shelves along one wall, mostly economics and finance texts from college. His laptop sat closed on the desk. Everything looked normal, ordinary. I walked to the bed and knelt down on the carpet. I lifted the edge of the bedspread and looked underneath. At first I saw nothing. Then pushed back against the wall near the headboard, I spotted it. A small metal box about the size of a document case, gunmetal gray. I pulled it out and sat back on my heels. The box was locked. My fingers shook as I took the key from my pocket and inserted it into the lock. It fit perfectly. I turned the key and heard a soft click. The lid opened. Inside was a stack of papers, several photographs, and a small USB drive. I lifted out the first document. It was a photocopy of a financial contract from Gregory's company, Harrington Investment Group. At first, the numbers and terms meant nothing to me. Then I saw the highlighted sections. Large transfers of money to offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. The amounts made me dizzy. Over $3 million. I set that page aside and picked up the next one. It was a printed email exchange between Gregory and someone named Victor Krause. The subject line read Fund Movement Timeline. The email discussed cleaning the funds and moving them through various offshore accounts. The language was careful, but the meaning was clear. This was money laundering. My hands went numb. I set the papers down and looked at the photographs. They showed Gregory meeting with Victor Krause at an upscale restaurant. The photos were dated 2 months ago. In one image, Gregory was handing Victor an envelope. In another, they were leaning close together, clearly discussing something confidential. The next document was a handwritten note from Lucas. I recognized his neat printing. The note was dated 3 weeks ago. It read, Dad has been embezzling client funds, moving money offshore. I found the evidence. Need to decide what to do. Can't believe he would do this. What about Mom? What about our family? Tears blurred my vision. I blinked them away and kept reading. There were more documents. Bank statements showing withdrawals from client accounts, transfers to Gregory's personal account, then transfers to the offshore accounts. The paper trail was damning. Lucas had spent months compiling this evidence. He had been thorough, methodical. He had discovered that his father was a criminal. I sat on the floor of my son's bedroom, surrounded by proof that my husband had been stealing from his clients. Gregory, the man I had trusted for 30 years. The man who had held my hand when I gave birth to Lucas. The man who had coached Lucas's little league team and taught him to ride a bike. That man was a thief. As I opened that box, I had no idea I was about to uncover a secret that would destroy everything I thought I knew about my husband. I needed to see everything. I couldn't stop now. I gathered all the papers and carried them downstairs to the living room. I opened my laptop and inserted the USB drive. The drive contained several Excel spreadsheets. I opened the first one. It was titled Client Account Discrepancies. The spreadsheet listed dozens of accounts with Gregory's company. Next to each account name was a series of transactions, money withdrawn from the client accounts, money deposited into an account labeled GT Personal. I didn't need to guess what GT stood for. Gregory Thompson, my husband's name. The amounts varied, 5,000 here, 20,000 there, some as high as 100,000. The dates spanned 2 years. I scrolled to the bottom of the spreadsheet and found the total: $3,200,000. Gregory had stolen over $3 million from his clients. The second file contained email exchanges. I read through them, my stomach churning. Gregory and Victor Krause had been in contact for at least 18 months. Victor operated what he called a consulting firm, but the emails made it clear his real business was helping people hide money. Gregory sent him funds. Victor moved them through a series of shell companies and offshore accounts. He took a percentage for his services. The rest ended up in accounts that couldn't be easily traced back to Gregory. One email from Victor made me feel sick. He wrote, "Your problem is solved. The transfers are clean. Even if someone looks, they won't find the connection. You're protected." Gregory had replied, "Thank you. This buys me time to figure out my next move." What next move? Time for what? The emails were from 6 months ago. Had Gregory been planning to disappear? To take the money and run? What about me? What about Lucas? The third file on the USB was a folder full of scanned images, bank documents, signed contracts, transfer receipts. Lucas had been incredibly thorough. He had built an airtight case against his own father. I sat back on the couch staring at the laptop screen. How long had Lucas known? The note he wrote was dated 3 weeks ago, but the evidence went back much further. He must have spent months investigating, gathering proof, trying to decide what to do. And then it hit me. A terrible cold realization. Lucas had discovered this. He was going to do something about it. Maybe he had confronted Gregory. Maybe he had threatened to go to the police. And 3 days ago, Lucas had nearly died in a car accident. Was it really an accident? I thought back to the hospital. Gregory's strange behavior. The way he had looked at Lucas, not with grief, but with fear. The way he had rushed out, claiming a work emergency. Had he known about Lucas's investigation? Had he done something to stop Lucas from exposing him? My mind recoiled from the thought. Gregory would never hurt Lucas. He was our son. Gregory loved him. Didn't he? But then again, I had thought Gregory was honest. I had thought he was a good man. Clearly, I had been wrong about that. I pulled out my phone and searched for information about the accident. There wasn't much online yet, just a brief mention in a local news site. Vehicle struck light pole on I-93. Driver hospitalized with serious injuries. No other vehicles involved. The incident was under investigation. No other vehicles involved. That meant Lucas had simply lost control of his car. But while Lucas was a careful driver, he had never been in an accident before. It didn't make sense, unless someone had tampered with his car, unless the accident wasn't an accident at all. I looked at the clock. It was past midnight. Where was Gregory? I called his cell phone again. It went straight to voicemail. I called his office. No answer. I even called his assistant, but she didn't pick up. He had vanished. I sat alone in our living room with evidence of his crimes spread out around me. The man I had loved, the father of my child, was a criminal. And I had to decide what to do about it. Did I protect him? Did I protect our family's reputation? Or did I do what Lucas had been trying to do? Did I turn Gregory in? And what about Lucas's warning? Trust no one, not even Dad. Lucas had wanted me to see this. He had left me instructions. He had been trying to protect me. I thought about my son lying in that hospital bed, fighting for his life. And I thought about Gregory, wherever he was hiding from me and from the truth. I made my decision in that moment. Lucas had tried to do the right thing, and I was going to finish what he started. I sat there with the evidence in my hands, torn between the man I loved and the justice my son was fighting for. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the couch reading through every document, every email, every piece of evidence Lucas had collected. By the time the sun rose, I had memorized most of it. The scope of Gregory's crimes was staggering. He hadn't just stolen from 1 or 2 clients. He had been systematically skimming from dozens of accounts over 2 years. At 6 in the morning, I heard the front door open. Gregory came in looking exhausted. His shirt was wrinkled. His eyes were bloodshot. When he saw me sitting in the living room with papers spread across the coffee table, he froze. Where did you get those? His voice was barely a whisper. I looked at him, really looked at him. This man I had shared my life with. I didn't recognize him anymore. Lucas left them for me. He knew what you did. Gregory's face went pale. He sank into the armchair across from me. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The silence was suffocating. Is it true? I finally asked. Did you steal from your clients? Did you launder money? Gregory didn't try to deny it. He nodded slowly, his head in his hands. It started small. I was trying to cover some losses, investments that went bad. I thought I could pay it back before anyone noticed. But then it got out of control. $3 million is not small, Gregory. That's a crime. That's prison time. I know. I know. His voice broke. I was going to fix it. I was going to put the money back. When after you got caught, after you destroyed people's retirement funds, their savings, their futures. Gregory looked up at me with tears in his eyes. I'm sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. I leaned forward, my hands shaking. What happened to Lucas? Was it really an accident? Gregory's face showed genuine shock. What? Of course it was. You think I would hurt our son? I don't know what to think anymore. You're not the man I thought you were. So tell me the truth. Did Lucas confront you? Did he threaten to go to the police? Gregory was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded. He found out about 2 months ago. He came to me. He was so angry, so disappointed. He said he was going to turn me in. I begged him not to. I told him we could work it out as a family. I told him I would fix everything. And did you fix it? I was trying. I was working with Victor to find a way to return the money without getting caught. But it takes time. Lucas gave me a deadline. He said if I didn't make things right by the end of this month, he was going to the authorities. My heart pounded. And 3 days ago, Lucas ended up in a coma. Convenient timing. Gregory stood up, his face furious. I did not hurt our son. I would never. I love him. The accident was terrible luck, terrible timing, but it was not my doing. Then prove it. Show me you had nothing to do with it. I can't prove a negative, Cecilia. You either believe me or you don't. I stood up and gathered all the papers, all the evidence. Right now, I don't know what I believe. But I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to find out the truth about Lucas's accident. And if you had anything to do with it, I will make sure you pay. Gregory reached for me. Please, don't destroy our family over this. I pulled away. You already destroyed it. You did that the moment you decided to steal and lie. I left him standing there and went upstairs. I packed a bag with some clothes and toiletries. I was going to stay at the hospital with Lucas. I couldn't be in this house with Gregory right now. I needed space to think. Before I left, I made copies of all the evidence. I put one set in a safe deposit box at the bank. I gave another set to my friend Martha, asking her to hold on to it without looking inside. If anything happens to me, I told her, take this to the police. She looked worried, but agreed. Then I drove back to Massachusetts General Hospital. Lucas was still unconscious. His condition hadn't changed. I sat beside him and took his hand. I told him I had found what he wanted me to find. I told him I knew the truth now, and I promised him I would get justice. I need to find out what happened to you, baby. I need to know if your accident was really an accident. And I'm going to keep fighting until I get answers. I stayed at the hospital all day. Gregory called several times. I didn't answer. He left messages pleading with me to come home to talk to him. I deleted them. That evening I called the police station and asked to speak to someone about Lucas's accident. I was transferred to an officer named Martinez. He was handling the investigation. I told him I was Lucas's mother and asked if they had any updates. Officer Martinez was professional but sympathetic. The investigation was ongoing. They were examining the vehicle. It would take a few more days to complete the technical analysis. He couldn't share details yet, but he would call me as soon as he knew more. I thanked him and hung up. Then I sat beside my son and waited. For answers, for justice, for Lucas to wake up. I made my choice. My son had tried to do the right thing, and I would not let his courage be in vain. 3 days passed. I barely left the hospital. I slept in the chair beside Lucas's bed. Nurses brought me coffee and sandwiches. Dr. Patterson checked on us regularly. Lucas's condition remained stable but unchanged. He was still in a coma, his brain still healing from the trauma. Gregory came to the hospital twice. Both times I asked him to leave. I couldn't look at him without feeling sick. The third time he tried to visit, I had hospital security escort him out. I told them he was not welcome in Lucas's room. Gregory stood in the hallway looking broken, but I didn't care. He had broken us first. On the morning of the fourth day, my phone rang. It was Officer Martinez. He asked if I could come down to the police station. He had information about the accident that he needed to discuss in person. My heart raced as I told Helen I would be back soon and drove to the station. Officer Martinez met me in a small conference room. He was in his 40s, with a serious face and tired eyes. He gestured for me to sit down. Mrs. Thompson, I need to share some findings from our investigation. What I'm about to tell you is difficult. I braced myself. What did you find? We completed our technical examination of your son's vehicle. The brakes had been tampered with. The brake lines were cut in a way that would cause gradual failure. By the time your son realized something was wrong, he couldn't stop the car. This was not an accident. This was attempted murder. The room spun. I gripped the edge of the table. Someone tried to kill my son. Officer Martinez nodded gravely. We're treating this as a criminal investigation now. I need to ask you some questions. Did Lucas have any enemies? Anyone who might want to hurt him? My mouth went dry. I thought about the evidence Lucas had collected. I thought about Gregory's crimes. I thought about the deadline Lucas had given his father. And I knew what I had to do. I told Officer Martinez everything. About Gregory's embezzlement. About the money laundering. About Lucas discovering the crimes and confronting his father. About Gregory's deadline and Lucas's threat to go to the police. I told him about the evidence Lucas had collected, and I told him where to find the copies I had made. Officer Martinez listened carefully, taking notes. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "We'll need to bring your husband in for questioning." I nodded. "Do you think he did this? Do you think Gregory tried to kill Lucas?" Martinez chose his words carefully. "We'll follow the evidence. But yes, given what you've told me, your husband is now a person of interest in this case." I left the police station feeling numb. I had just turned in my husband. I had just told the police he might have tried to murder our son. Part of me couldn't believe I had done it. But another part of me, the part that had sat beside Lucas's hospital bed for 4 days, knew it was the right thing to do. 2 hours later, I was back at the hospital when I got a call from a lawyer named Andrew. He said he represented Gregory and that the police had just arrested him. Not for embezzlement, for attempted murder. They had found text messages between Gregory and Victor Krause discussing Lucas as a problem that needed to be handled. They had found evidence of a payment from Gregory to Victor $50,000 with a note that said, "For the solution we discussed." I listened to Andrew explain that Victor had been arrested too. Under questioning, Victor had confessed. He had hired someone named Tony, a mechanic, with a criminal record to sabotage Lucas's car. Victor claimed Gregory had ordered it. Gregory was denying everything, but the evidence was mounting. I hung up and sat down heavily. My husband had tried to kill our son. The man I had loved for 30 years had paid someone to murder our child because Lucas threatened to expose his crimes. I couldn't process it. It was too enormous, too horrible. I went back to Lucas's room and sat beside him. I took his hand and cried. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I didn't see what he was. I'm so sorry I didn't protect you." The machines around us beeped steadily. Lucas's chest rose and fell with the ventilator. He looked peaceful, unaware of the chaos around him. I hoped he couldn't hear me. I hoped he was somewhere safe in his mind, far from all this pain. 2 days later, the police told me they had arrested Tony the mechanic. He had confessed to cutting the brake lines on Lucas's car. He said Victor had paid him $10,000 to do it. Victor, in turn, had been paid by Gregory. The chain was complete. My husband had orchestrated an attempt on our son's life. I went to the police station and asked to see Gregory. They allowed me a supervised visit. He sat across from me in an orange jumpsuit, his hands cuffed to the table. He looked like he had aged 10 years in a week. "How could you?" I asked. "He's your son." Gregory's face crumpled. "I didn't mean for it to go that far. I just wanted to scare him, to stop him from going to the police. I told Victor to arrange a small accident, just enough to keep Lucas in the hospital for a while, to buy me time to fix things. You hired someone to cut his brakes. You tried to kill him." Victor said it would just be a minor accident. He promised Lucas wouldn't be seriously hurt. "I never wanted this. I never wanted him in a coma. You have to believe me." I stood up. "I don't have to believe anything you say anymore. You're a liar and a criminal. And you tried to murder our child. I'm done with you." Gregory started crying. "Please, Cecilia. I love you. I love Lucas. I made a terrible mistake. Please don't leave me." I looked at him one last time. Love you, don't know what that word means. Then I turned and walked out. The guard closed the door behind me, and I didn't look back. I walked away from the man I had spent 30 years with, knowing I would never see him the same way again. The days that followed were a blur of meetings with prosecutors, more police interviews, and endless hours at the hospital. I gave them everything, every document Lucas had collected, every piece of evidence. The prosecutors told me they were building a strong case. Gregory would be charged with embezzlement, money laundering, and attempted murder. Victor Krause would face charges for conspiracy and hiring someone to commit a crime. Tony would be charged with attempted murder as well. All three men would likely spend decades in prison. The thought should have given me satisfaction, but instead, I felt hollow. My family was destroyed. My husband was a monster. My son was still unconscious. I filed for divorce. The lawyer told me it would take months to finalize, but I didn't care. I never wanted to see Gregory again. I started making plans to sell our house in Brookline. Too many memories, too much pain. I would find something smaller, closer to the hospital, closer to Lucas, Emily and Daniel. No, wait. I don't have an Emily and Daniel. Those are from a different story. Let me correct myself. I had friends who visited me at the hospital. Martha came every day with food and coffee. My neighbors sent flowers and cards. Lucas's friends from MIT stopped by to sit with him, to talk to him, hoping he could hear. But through it all, Lucas remained unconscious. A week passed, then 2 weeks. The doctors said his brain was healing, but slowly. They couldn't predict when or if he would wake up. I refused to give up hope. I talked to him every day. I read him his favorite books. I played music he loved. I told him about everything that was happening, about how Gregory had been arrested, about how justice was coming. One evening, 3 weeks after the accident, I was sitting beside Lucas, reading aloud, when I felt something. A small movement. I looked down at my hand. Lucas's fingers had twitched. I called for Dr. Patterson. He came quickly and examined Lucas. "This is a good sign. Brain activity is increasing. Keep talking to him. Keep letting him know you're here." Over the next few days, Lucas showed more signs of waking. His eyes would flutter. His hand would squeeze mine. And then, 4 weeks after the accident, on a Tuesday morning, I was telling him about the sunrise I had watched from his window when his eyes opened. Just a little at first, then wider. He looked confused, disoriented. He tried to speak, but couldn't because of the ventilator tube. I pressed the call button for the nurse, tears streaming down my face. "Lucas, baby, can you hear me? Squeeze my hand if you can hear me." He squeezed, weakly but definitely. Dr. Patterson came in and began the process of removing the ventilator. It took time, but finally the tube was out. Lucas coughed and gasped. His voice was raspy when he finally spoke. "Mom, I'm here. I'm right here. You're okay. You're going to be okay." Over the next week, Lucas improved rapidly. His memory came back. His speech returned. He needed physical therapy to regain his strength, but he was awake and healing. When he was strong enough to have longer conversations, I told him everything about finding the key and the box, about the evidence he had collected, about Gregory's arrest, about the attempted murder charges. Lucas listened, his face pale, tears running down his cheeks. "I'm sorry, Mom. I should have told you sooner. I didn't want to hurt you. I didn't want you to know what Dad had become. You did the right thing. You tried to expose the truth. And because of you, justice will be served. You were so brave." He looked at me with his father's eyes, and it broke my heart. "I just wanted to protect you from him. I was so scared he would hurt you too. And now I've protected both of us. We're going to be okay, Lucas. We're going to get through this together." 6 months later, Gregory's trial began. Lucas and I both testified. The evidence was overwhelming. Gregory was convicted on all counts. The judge sentenced him to 30 years in prison for embezzlement, money laundering, and attempted murder. Victor Krause received 20 years. Tony received 15 years. I sat in the courtroom and watched as they led Gregory away. He turned back one last time and looked at me. I saw regret in his eyes, maybe even genuine remorse. But it didn't matter anymore. He had made his choices. Now he would live with the consequences. Lucas sat beside me holding my hand. He had made a full recovery. He was back at work. He was building his life again. And we were closer than ever. We had survived the worst thing a family could go through. And we had survived it together. Justice had been served. And though it came at the cost of my marriage, I knew I had done what was right. It took time to rebuild our lives. Lucas and I sold the house in Brookline. Too many painful memories lived in those walls. We found a smaller place, a townhouse in Cambridge, closer to MIT, where Lucas had friends. It was a fresh start for both of us. Lucas went back to work at his firm. His colleagues had been supportive throughout his recovery. He threw himself into his job, perhaps as a way to process everything that had happened. I worried about him sometimes, but he seemed to be healing in his own way. As for me, I had to figure out who I was without Gregory. I had spent 30 years as his wife. That identity was gone now. I was 54 years old, starting over. It was terrifying and liberating at the same time. I found a part-time job at the Cambridge Public Library. It was quiet work surrounded by books and kind people. It gave me structure without overwhelming me. The pay wasn't much, but between that and my share of what remained of our assets after the divorce, I could manage. I also started attending a support group for victims of family crimes. I met other women whose husbands or children had betrayed them in various ways. Hearing their stories helped me feel less alone. Sharing mine helped them too. We were all trying to make sense of how the people we loved could hurt us so deeply. Lucas and I had dinner together twice a week. We would cook meals and talk about everything and nothing. Work, books, movies, the future. Sometimes we talked about Gregory. Sometimes we didn't. The anger had faded over time, replaced by something sadder and more complicated. Grief for the family we thought we had. Relief that we had survived. Determination to build something better. One evening, about a year after the trial, Lucas and I were having dinner at the townhouse. He had brought Chinese takeout, and we were eating straight from the containers like we used to when he was in college. He looked at me across the table and said, "I'm proud of you, Mom, for everything you did, for choosing what was right even when it was hard." I reached across and squeezed his hand. "I learned that from you. You were willing to stand up to your own father. That took incredible courage. You could have looked the other way. You could have pretended you didn't know, but you didn't." Lucas was quiet for a moment. "Do you think you'll ever forgive him?" I thought about it. Forgiveness was complicated. I forgave him, I honestly don't know. Maybe someday. But I don't need to forgive him to move forward. I've learned that. I can acknowledge what he did, accept that it happened, and still choose to live a good life. His choices don't have to define my future. That's wise, Mom. I smiled. I'm learning as I go, just like you. We finished our dinner and watched a movie together. It was an ordinary evening, peaceful and comfortable. These small moments of normalcy were precious now. We had fought so hard to get here. Looking back, I realized that everything changed the moment I found that key in Lucas's pocket. That small piece of metal unlocked more than just a box. It unlocked the truth about my husband. It unlocked a future I never imagined I would have to face. But it also unlocked something else. It unlocked my own strength, my own sense of justice, my own ability to stand up and do what was right, even when it meant losing everything I thought I had. The truth had cost me my marriage. It had cost me the life I had built. But it had also given me something invaluable. It had given me integrity. It had given me the knowledge that when it mattered most, I chose justice over comfort. I chose my son over my husband. I chose truth over lies. Lucas was alive because I made that choice. He was thriving because we had faced the truth together. And I was free. Free from a life built on lies. Free from a marriage to a man who valued money over his own child. Free to build a new life based on honesty and love. Sometimes the hardest thing we do is also the most necessary. And I would do it all again. Before I go, I want to ask you something. Have you ever had to choose between protecting someone you love and doing what you know is right? How did you make that choice? Leave your answer in the comments below. I read every single one and your stories matter. If this story moved you, please hit that like button. It helps more people find these stories and know they're not alone in facing impossible choices. And subscribe to the channel so you never miss another story about courage, truth, and surviving the unthinkable. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that doing the right thing is worth it even when it costs everything. Sometimes the truth is the only way forward. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. I hope that wherever you are in your own journey, you find the strength to face your truths and the courage to do what's right. Take care of yourselves and each other. Until next time.